Hello, hello, hello. Darlene A Anderson here, personal development coach, author, motivational speaker, entrepreneur, and to many of you, your self-direction broker in the state of New York under the Office of People with Developmental Disabilities. Again, welcome. I'm excited. This is my first video that I am uploading onto Empowered Movements on Facebook. We will actually also be uploading this video onto our YouTube page, Empowered Movements with Darlene. If you haven't liked the page already, I invite you to click onto the link below and shoot right on over there and like that page, because I'll be sharing more on that page, not just about self-direction, but about my experiences, my journeys as a seasoned professional in the state of New York, working with various populations in need and some great resources and tools towards areas of advancement. So I invite you to go on over to that page. Again, if you haven't already, click into it, like it, then come back to the video, right? So for today, we're actually going to be sharing some great things about self-direction that I think, if not for you, you can share it with your family members, your neighbors, your friends, your community affiliates, everybody that you think can benefit from that, right? So before I get into that, I want to take a moment and say thank you for your partnership. I am truly blessed and honored to be working with you all on this self-direction journey. It's your journey, but it's my journey as well as a partner, right? We work together, we're family. We really work to ensure that for self-advocates, you guys are getting what you need, and designees, inclusive of parents and grandparents and siblings, I am partnering with you to give you what you need so that your loved ones have successful outcomes within self-direction. Okay. I think it's a moment to just like celebrate. It's a celebratory moment, right? I am now standing in around 7 years or so of self-direction. Like, the time has flown by so quickly, but I have to acknowledge just working with amazing, again, self-advocates and families from 2015 to present. I became a registered self-direction broker in 2015, and I got my first case in 2016. So actually, it was October of 2015. And then I started in April of 2016 with my first family. And that speaks to what I tell you guys about like time frames and just the whole 6-month intervals. It took me 6 months before I got my first case and was up and running to work. So when I tell you guys again, 6 months, I don't want to hear, oh, 6 months is innocent. I too had to go through that 6-month journey, right? And each interval is around 6 months, 3 to 6 months or so. And we'll speak about that in some other video. So just for you to get a better understanding of what's going on as we're doing documentation and everything, or making connections and linking to fiscal intermediaries. If I'm throwing out words now that you don't know, no worries. You will know these words sooner or later. Okay. So, yeah, thank you so much. Your partnership means so much to me. Again, I am truly honored. I'm excited. I tell you guys that all of the time when we speak one-to-one. It's an honor to serve you, and I look to doing so in the future. Okay, now all of that being stated, we have to get some disclaimers out of the way, right? I am coming to you, as I stated, as a seasoned professional within the state of New York and as a self-direction broker who has learned through experiences and working with various partnerships, i.e. regional offices, i.e. fiscal intermediaries, care managers, mental health providers, medical providers. All of these things are just things that I am sharing based on my own experiences to produce positive outcomes. I do not represent the Office of People with Developmental Disabilities. I am an independent contractor, but I do not reserve the right to come out and state that this is what they're stating and this is law. It's not. Please refer to your regional director, refer to your care coordinator, which we'll speak about in the future if you want those policies and procedures and how to move forward with certain things. These are just, again, my tools that I'm sharing with you that you can, again, go back and get information to confirm them. Okay? That stated, I will also be listing the website for the Office of People with Developmental Disabilities in this video as well for your reference. Now, I threw out the Office of People with Developmental Disabilities, the name. I also want to throw out the acronym, OPWDD. So if you hear me saying OPWDD, I am referring to the Office of People with Developmental Disabilities, in which I am registered as an independent self-direction broker with them. Okay, now, the topic for today, right? I wanted to come out and share something that I thought would be timeless, something for now, right? something that you can go back and reference, something that you can do additional work in. And when I say work, I mean research in, that you can use as a guide towards becoming registered under the self-direction program with the Office of People with Developmental Disabilities. The reason why I wanted to do this topic to start with was because I get a lot of referrals from care coordinators, from clients that I'm working with that feel like I would be a good fit for their family members or neighbors, from schools, from church. I get a lot of referrals. And one thing that I've come to realize is that when people, and I would say 99% of the time, when people are referring someone to me, they're not ready to self-direct. And that could be for various reasons, which I'll speak to. But the fact that I'm given referrals, I don't take lightly. It's always a blessing. But I want you all to know that there is a road to self-directing. And I want to share some of those tools. So maybe when you're speaking to people, you can interview them and you can say, you know what? Did you do this? Did you do that? Do you have this? Do you have that? Or here's a great video for you to go back and reference. All right. So let's get into the meat and potatoes of that. Where do you start with self-direction and how do you get to me, right? That's the main thing. Like, how do you self-direct to the point where you're like, Miss Anderson, I am ready to rock and roll and move forward? Okay, the first thing. And I hope that you all, when I share things with you, I don't want you to laugh and say, oh, I did that. I should know that. We should never take for granted that the things that we know other people may not be privy of. So this is a teachable moment for a lot of people that didn't know that all of these things need to be put in place. And again, when you get this information, share it with somebody. Okay. In order to self-direct and have a self-direction broker, you need to be registered with the Office of People with Developmental Disabilities, right? And that link is below. You have to register with them so that your diagnosis or your loved one's diagnosis is registered, it is confirmed, it meets the criteria of being under the Office of People with Developmental Disabilities. There's a criteria for that. You have to have had a diagnosis before a certain age. There are certain diagnoses that fits as it being intellectually, developmentally disabled. And there's a whole bunch of other criteria to that. So the first thing to do is to follow up with OPWDD. Now, when you're following up with them, there are things that should have happened prior to following up with them so that you have the documentation in place to present to them. That documentation is a psychosocial, a psych evaluation, a medical, and in some cases, it can be a neurological evaluation. And when I say psych evaluation, I'm giving the short terminology for it, but it's psychological evaluation, psychological evaluation and psychosocial, right? So those documents are what's needed to show that you have a developmental disability, intellectual and or developmental disability, right? So when you have that documentation, you present that. I'm just going to take a step back and say, also a medical. It's imperative that you have your medical and it's consistent. You are consistently, from the time that things were noticed, observed by you or a loved one, that you're presenting that to your medical doctor as well as your mental health doctor so that you can get the proper documentation to support these things when you come to the Office of People with Developmental Disabilities. Okay, I'm going to also do another video about when you are going to providers and you're doing an assessment, how you're answering questions, what you're remembering, what is deemed like a disability as it relates to medical or developmentally disabled. I'll give some resources to that as well. It's important to know. And the reason being is that sometimes we're asked questions and we're not giving the proper information. I find that I have clients that are around 20, 25, or 30 years old, and they have intellectual developmental disabilities, but their parents have never gotten them tested for autism. And I'm not a clinician, so I'm not able to assess anybody, but I'm looking at an individual and I'm saying, wow, you've never been obsessed for autism. And then these adults are now being diagnosed with autism. Or children have fallen when they were younger, or they've been born with some type of trauma to the brain. Maybe it developed differently during like stages of pregnancy, right? And they have that listed, but then they go through different stages of life with their children, parents, for example, and they're not stating, when my child was born, I was told that their brain wasn't fully developed. And as a result of that, X, Y, and Z happened throughout their milestones of development. They won't say that, but they'll say, there's been delays in my child's development throughout the years. It's a difference in the two. So it's just making sure that you're stating the right thing when you do your assessments and your medicals. All right. So again, I'll do another video for that. But getting back to OPWDD and registration, you definitely want to make sure that you have the documentation in place to present to them, so that when you go through the channels, which is, I believe, it's the front door. There are other avenues that you may have to go through, but the first step in the door through OPWDD is to go through the front door. And that is a workshop in which you're learning about OPWDD and the requirements that are needed to see if you qualify for the program. All right. And I put, again, that link is at the bottom. I also have the front door information at the bottom as well for you. Now, once you do that, I say simultaneously, you should be working to obtain a care coordinator. Now, depending on where you're at in New York, there are various ones. Downstate is a little different from upstate, but then also they're expanding. So you can also be in downstate and have more than a typical 3, which is care design, tri-county, and advanced alliance care. Those are the 3 that are more so downstate, right? Now, again, there are various care coordinators, organizations. I will put that link to you for you down at the bottom as well, but you'll need a care coordinator, right? So now you're rocking and rolling. You got your documentation. You have your care coordinator. You now are registered with OPWDD, right? Life is good. Then you're like, I'm ready to self-direct. You're still not ready to self-direct, right? These are some things that you will need once you have that foundation in place, right? You will need in order to work with me. I will send you now. If you've done all of that, you have your care coordinator, you have registered with OPWDD, you've gotten your approval. Now your approval with OPWDD will look like this, right? These are the documents that I'll need once you are ready and you come to me. I will ask you for your waiver of approval from OPWDD, waiver of approval. That's in the link, right? I will also ask you for your notice of determination. These are the items. Anybody that works for me knows you get that email with that list of things, right? Your level of care form. Okay. Now, once you give me that, your waiver of approval, your notice of determination, and your level of care, I will also then ask you for your life plan. If your child is still school age, meaning that they're in school through the Department of Education, or even if they're in private school, doesn't matter either or. But if they are in school, I will also ask for your IEP. And your IEP is an acronym for your Individualized Education Plan that is given to you through the Department of Education and in most cases for private schools as well. It's given to you when your child has a documented disability, and it's a part of their plan, I guess their care plan, for a lack of other words, right? A simpler term, their care plan when they are in school, because their education experience has to be coupled based on their developmental disability, of course, for fairness and to ensure that they are moving in accordance to their levels, their stages of development, right? So that is an individualized education plan. I will ask you for that as well. I will also ask you for the psychosocial and the psych eval that you submitted to state that you qualified for OPWDD. I will also ask you for the DDP2 questionnaire, that is an assessment, and we're going to talk more about that on down the line, just as it relates to the broker and working with the parents and the self advocate. The DDP is the developmental disability profile that you go over with various providers within OPWDD. That can be when you initially intake with them. That can be if you have already established a waiver and you have services and your child is maybe in an agency service or adults. That can be when you sit with your care coordinator and they have to do this every 2 years, I believe, 1 to 2 years. It gets a little complicated per the entity that's filling it out, but in most cases, it's every 2 years, right? And this developmental assessment is used to determine your acuity, your ADLs, where you're at cognitively. It's a lot of questions that they ask. And I tell parents, when you're doing this, you're not listing, and most providers will tell you this, you're not listing your child on their best day. You're listing them on their worst day within that measurement of doing it. If you are listing your child on their best day, you're not illustrating their need. And there's more that goes into that. And again, we'll discuss that in upcoming videos. But that DDP2 score is what I look at as well, because I want to make sure that it's mirroring the psychosocial, the psych eval, and the medical. Okay. The other thing that you will need is the self-direction certificate that you have attended the OPWDD's workshop on self-direction, which is different from front door. Front door, they may touch on self-direction, but the self-direction workshop itself is everything that you need as an individual or as a designee that's going to be helping an individual to self-direct. So these are the documents that I'll ask for, and I'll tell you again in no particular order: the life plan, the LOC, the NOD. Also, I'm so sorry, I forgot about this. This is the main one, the SARF. Oh my God, how can I forget the SARF? Because the SARF is just come about around a year ago or so, and the SARF is actually a requirement that your care coordinator has to provide to the state, asking for permission, so to speak, right? In simple terms, asking for permission to move forward with self-direction processing for you. You have to do the SARF. The SARF is a service request, again, that your care manager has to do so that you're able to move forward with self-direction. And it's just through their database. They actually pop in a couple of things, submit it, and then it comes back that the state has acknowledged that you, as a participant, or again, your loved one, is interested in moving forward with self-direction. And once you get that approval, then you're able to move forward. So I just want to just run it for a second. All right, go down this list. Excuse me, I don't have it all in my head. There's so much in my head. Sometimes it's hard to just bring it all into alignment. So I document it. Okay, we have the life plan, the LOC, the NOD, the waiver approval, the psychosocial, the psych eval. The psychosocial and psych eval should be within the past year as well. You have your IEP, your DDP, your self-direction certificate, and your SARF. Those are the main components that I need to move forward with self-direction for you. I didn't speak to the life plan, but your life plan is your published tool. It's like something that it's pretty much like your OPWDD like Bible of services, right? Your life plan is compiled of various services that you're in receipt of, various goals that you're looking to pursue. It's a narrative of you or your loved one, and that's done by your care manager every 6 months into services. So every 6 months, you'll have a review, and then you'll have an annual, a review and an annual. And that life plan is not just about your services, but it's the services that you're receiving from the community specific to OPWDD. And we'll speak a little bit more about that down the line too, specific to self-direction. So when you have all of these things and they're all in place, then you come to me, and then I help you to obtain what's called a fiscal intermediary. And that fiscal intermediary works in partnership with your self direction broker to help you to self direct. The fiscal intermediary acts as pretty much a liaison between the state and you, so that services are rendered. And then when payments are to be made, they are facilitating payments. They are the payee of record for your staff, for all of your services, for reimbursements. Even for me, like I am paid through the fiscal intermediary. And I work with various fiscal intermediaries. It's not just one. Fiscal intermediaries are dependent on your demographic location, and that means like the city that you live in. If you're downstate or upstate, is depending on what works for you as far as the pay rate that you want for staff. It's dependent on how you want to submit your documentation. There are a lot of factors that go into choosing a fiscal intermediary, and many of you know I do work closely with you on selecting a fiscal intermediary. Um, yeah, I think I've said a mouthful. Like, I just really wanted to come on. And you know, what's funny is that even with this, right, I will still get those calls and I will still have to run down everything that I need. And I don't mind. I never get tired of it and never grows old. It's just really looking to see how we can help to minimize that gap of time when you come to me and us looking for a fiscal intermediary and then working towards self-direction. So I'm going to come out, as I stated, and speak a little bit more about being an interviewee as you're doing assessments. I'm going to speak to you a little bit more about community services and where you should consider going to get services done, like i.e., psychosocial, psych evals, medicals. We're going to speak a little bit more too about how you can couple other services into your self-direction budget. A lot of parents will say, you know, I need more assistance. I love self-direction. It works for me, but my child, like, you know, it's a lot and it's just me. I'm a single mom. It's hard. How do I get more services? And that's really, it's a tough question. And not all of the time can I provide the right answer. However, I do know, depending on someone's diagnosis, that you can get, for example, home care to assist you with your child, that you can get various forms of respite to assist you with your child. So I will definitely be coming out and speaking to some of those things. And as previously stated, not just self-direction, but other things that I am seasoned and kind of understanding through experiences and working with people, matters that can help produce positive outcomes to your advantages. All right. I very much am grateful for your time, and I'll see you all again. Take care.